Get my 6. Greetings, everybody. Welcome back to the most amazing homesteading channel on the internet that has nothing to do with homesteading off the grid, and a beautiful October afternoon to hear some more stories for wonderful October nights. It looks like a tunnel back there, doesn't it? Or some kind of pathway, but it's not that we know of. So, folks, hope you've been enjoying the stories. Thanks for showing up. I'm going to read you 3 today that were submitted by viewers just like you, and maybe you if you're one of them. If you'd like to submit a story to the channel, you can do so. Our email address is crazylake@mail.com. Give us your permission to use them, and we'll share them on the channel and or publish them in an upcoming volume of True Hauntings. We're going to read today from Volume 2. These are available on Amazon and print or Kindle, and our Etsy store when it's active. Sometimes we travel, we leave town for a while, and we deactivate the store. So, but Amazon's always there. All right, so let's get to it. Remember, get my 6, watch back here. You never know who or what may or may not show up in these videos. I see so much better with these. So our first one is a story called The Tree Bark Monster, and it comes from longtime viewer Teresa Kroger Nevels, and I know I always mispronounce that last name. Maybe it's Nevels, I don't know. But she's got a YouTube channel called Mustard Seed Faith Grows. Mustard Seed Faith Grows. Go check it out. Going to read this story called The Tree Bark Monster. Watch for the tree bark back here. See if it comes to life as we do this. Oh, now I can see even a lot better. All right. Back in early 2007, I managed to get out of another bad relationship. Ironically, my first ex-husband and my ex-monster-in-law were the ones to help me. They basically brought me and my 1-year-old son to my parents' house and shamed them into letting me stay there. There's a whole other story I won't bore you with. The house I'd been staying in with my boyfriend was an old small farmhouse. It was a rental. There wasn't any decent insulation. We also discovered the wiring was bad when part of my 12-year-old's video game system got melted. Emotionally, I was in a bad place. I knew I needed to get out of the relationship, but I had nowhere to go. I had a 1-year-old little boy, and I couldn't just go be independent. The house was so cold, despite getting a gas wall heater to help the old wall heater that came with the house. One day, while my toddler was taking a nap, I laid down. As I lay there, I felt a presence behind me. I had been praying for a way out. At first, I thought it was the presence of my papa. He would be so ashamed of me right now. The whole living out of wedlock, etc. Dark, gloomy, and condemning thoughts filled my head. I was suddenly creeped out by the feeling of that presence behind me. I jumped up off the bed to look behind me but saw nothing. This happened a few times during the 1 month I lived there. I went to wash the dishes and removed my engagement ring and, as always, put it on the windowsill. By this time, my little one woke up. I tended to him, finished the dishes, and reached for my ring. It wasn't there. I looked all around, nothing. Of course, my possessive and insecure boyfriend noticed immediately that I wasn't wearing the ring. I explained what happened, but he went on and on about me not caring about his ring. A few days later, I was reaching for a towel on the top shelf of the bathroom closet. I felt something that wasn't a towel. I took it and saw that it was the missing ring. To this day, I do not know how it got there. It was not a place I would have ever put it. I don't know if there was something evil lurking because the house was cold and had creepy feeling in it, or if the ring magically moved from the windowsill to a top shelf in the bathroom. Just as a skeptic of the story, which you know, Teresa, I totally believe because I experience odd things too and I believe in this stuff. But you mentioned your boyfriend was insecure and possessive and it was a toxic relationship. A lot of guys like that maybe he hid the ring so he would have a good reason to guilt shame you for not wearing it. That's just what these sociopaths are like, unfortunately. But not to detract from the paranormal potentiality of it all. A couple of months after, that's called gaslighting. He might have been gaslighting you with the ring. A couple of months after leaving my boyfriend, good choice, and moving in with my parents, I was asleep in the middle of the night when I heard a sound. I woke up thinking the coons or possums were in the carport. I heard the sound again. It was coming from the window. When I looked through the slightly open blinds, there was a figure standing there outside. It had an evil, ugly face. Its body was made of what appeared to be tree bark. It had arms, and I assumed legs, because it was standing. I froze and said something about Jesus, and it was gone. Eventually, I went back to sleep, convincing myself that I imagined the whole thing. I told my mom about it the next day. She told me I must have been dreaming. Maybe I had been. A few weeks later, I was outside at dusk, that thin veil time. Yeah, it's when the veil grows very thin. Something moved in my peripheral vision. I looked, and there it was, just briefly, mind you, the tree bark monster. In my mind, that's what I had called it the first time I saw it in the window. I saw it a few more times off and on. I mentioned it to my sister, who, like me, is an empath, but also gets premonitions. She told me that she had a friend who had seen this same tree bark monster before. This friend had been going through some bad times. Myself, I was struggling with depression, and my father constantly reminded me of what a loser I was. He and I have since gotten past that in his old age. However, during this time, I was struggling with intrusive thoughts of suicide. Verbal abuse had been part of my existence since about the age of 5. This probably had something to do with my poor choice in significant others. Yes, I would concur with that. Years later, after I'd remarried and moved to that haunted island in Maine, remember that story I sent? I took my daughter to the Stonington Opera House to see the movie Maleficent. In the movie, there are these tree creatures. I had almost forgotten the tree bark monster until I saw those. Now, mind you, they weren't exactly the same. Those movie creatures' bark were browner, whereas the one I saw was of a grayer bark, similar to the bark of the trees in my area. So, when things are moving in the background of your videos, it's possible there could be a tree bark monster lurking during the thinning of the veil, or someone in your neighborhood could be in a dark place. The end. Again, that was submitted by Teresa Kruger Nevels. Her YouTube channel is Mustard Seed Faith Grows. And I will never view tree bark the same again. All right, let's go with another submitted by a viewer. Tina Brown / Tina Griffor, okay? Going with 2 names here on a story called Invisible Demon. Again, from True Hauntings Volume 2, available on Amazon in print or Kindle. Hello, Kevin. I have thought about telling you this story since before I told you about the fiery orb. I remember that story. It was creepy. I just don't know how to start it because it may be a little long, but here goes. My mother, my daughter, and I have had the same nightmare visitor most of our lives, and it hasn't been very pleasant unless being held down in your bed, unable to move or scream is something that you like. It started with my mother when she was a kid. She spent a lot of time staying with her brother and his wife, they being my aunt and uncle. My uncle used to work tearing down old houses and cutting down the trees on the property and digging up the roots of said trees. One day, he was digging up roots and uncovered an old bag. And when he picked it up to see what it was, he discovered it was a bag of old marbles. They were all of a pearly color with different colors running through them, making them look like they had veins. Well, he brought them home and told everyone that he had found them at an old house under a tree that was rumored to have been the home of a witch, and the property was cursed. Everyone said, yeah, right, and really didn't give it a second thought. My uncle put the old marbles in a porcelain cup on a bookshelf in the living room and forgot about them until they started rattling in the middle of the night. My mom said she was asleep in the extra bedroom at my uncle's house one weekend, and she was awakened by the sound of those marbles rattling around. She said she laid there and listened for a few minutes, and then she heard the floorboards creaking like someone was coming into the room. It was an old house with old-timey boards on the floor, and she said the way they sounded, something big was stepping on them coming right for her. She sat up and looked around the room and saw nothing, but the boards were creaking louder and almost to the bed. She threw back the covers and jumped out of bed and ran into my aunt and uncle's bedroom and jumped in the middle of them screaming. Of course, they didn't know what the hell had gotten into her and were trying to calm her down, and then they heard footsteps come into their room. All they could do was hold on to each other and hope they were dreaming, but they weren't. It made it to the foot of the bed, and all 3 of them could feel it putting pressure on the end of the bed. I just heard a tree knock. Did you? They could feel it putting pressure on the end of the bed like it had put one arm down and shifted weight and brought a leg up onto the bed. It was crawling up the bed from the foot. They said as soon as they felt its weight, the blankets were tucked in all around them and they couldn't move. They could feel it weighing the bed down all around them. My mom was the only one that had her hands loose, so she could feel something very muscular and very hairy and invisible. It lingered on them for a couple of minutes, and then it was like something shook the covers and all the weight was lifted and they could move again. I grew up hearing this story from all of them, and I know it's true because as soon as I got the curse, when girls turn into women, it happened to me. I know people will say it is just sleep paralysis, but that doesn't explain why my covers got thrown around the room or why it visited my daughter when she became a woman. I don't know why that has anything to do with it, but it just does. I would like to tell you the rest of the story of how I think I got rid of it, or at least I haven't felt it for a few years, neither has my daughter, but I'm afraid it would take a whole book. I will give it a while and then submit the rest of the story another day. As I told you before, you may use my name. Fix it to suit your needs. Sincerely, Tina Brown, Tina Griffor. That was a creepy story. Could you imagine that? With every successive generation of female children, you'd probably be fearing the time that they come of age and begin their menstrual cycle because this thing is waiting on them. All right, so I heard a tree knock while I was reading. I don't know if you heard it. It was pretty close. So I'm going to take the time to read one more story. This one's shorter than those two. So continue to get my 6, watch behind me, and listen for those tree knocks. This story submitted by Lisa Story Avance. It's called Smoking Up with a Ghost. Hi, Kevin. I'm Lisa Ann on your YouTube channel. This is a short story, but you're welcome to use it if you'd like. It's a true story that happened to me over 20 years ago, but it's still as clear in my mind as if it just happened. My maternal grandparents had a 2-story house, which was only 1 story when they moved into it. They added a hall in the back behind the kitchen with a breezeway on one end and a back porch on the other end. They then built a bedroom downstairs and 1 large room above it and the stairs across the hall from the kitchen. For years it was rumored that the upstairs room was haunted, but none of us ever knew why. One day, when I was around 16, I was sitting on the end of the bed by the door by myself smoking herb. Wink. We know what that is. Well, okay, if you lived in a house for a long time, you know all the little noises, house settling, etc. Well, all of a sudden I heard the top step squeak, and then the doorknob slowly turned, and the door slowly came open at least 2 feet, and nope, nobody was there. I sat there a few moments and then said, well, join the party, LOL. In years of living there, hearing rumors but never experiencing anything until that day, you honestly don't know what to think. It startled me for sure. Nervous laugh. That's it. You're welcome to use it and use my name. I just wanted to share it with you guys. Have a safe and blessed evening. Tell Dearly and Daniel hello. Sincerely, Lisa Story Avance. Well, no, I know what the skeptics would say. Oh, you were under the influence and you were seeing things. No, herb is not a hallucinogen, man. I don't think. I don't know. No, that's not the reason. It's because the freaking house was haunted. I just heard a thump. All right, well, those were some really nice creepy stories for you for October, huh? So I hope you enjoyed them. Yeah, I keep looking all over the house for my glasses. They're all up here in my bag of tricks, bag of books. I keep all these books in a bag. I guess this is where my glasses have come to accumulate. All right, so if you've got a creepy story that you'd like read on the channel or printed in the upcoming volume of True Hauntings, submit it to us. The email address is crazylake@mail.com. Remember to give us your permission to use it. And with all that said, I will see you tomorrow night for more creepy October flavored stories. Bye.